Hi, very good morning. It's Jim from Avstar. Very early morning, should I say. It's 5:15 in the morning. I'm up because of one of my parents is ill at the moment. I said I'd go and look after my dad while Mum goes to the hospital. So, putting that aside, we've got the Earth Alpha at a glance over the next few days, and around about the 12th of this month, we'll be doing the latest magnetic pole positioning for you. And I'll just mention the link down there, guys. Come on, if we were going to keep this on YouTube for you guys, then we need to start seeing a few coffees being brought here and there. And we'll do our bit here at this end. It's not cheap running a website, especially with the amount of data we've got on there now. And we do invest a lot of time not just in making these videos, but building all the stuff in the background and keeping it maintained, so that if something does dramatically change with the speed and rate at which the magnetic pole's migrating, we can relay that back to you. Okay, so welcome first of all to the dawn of a new era. And what do I mean by that? Okay, let me just explain a few things. We have been warning you guys for a good 5 years, if not a decade now, that this darkness was going to end up in your living room. And for a lot of people, that reality, if not already, is here today in their living room. It is on the doorstep, just waiting to creep in. What am I talking about? Well, watching a few videos over the last few days, I was watching someone in Austria who works a lot of their time in Germany, and they were saying that two of the biggest car manufacturers are cutting back on shifts. So these car manufacturers, like Mercedes was one of them, and Volkswagen was the other one. And they've started cutting the shifts back, which means they're probably halving their workforce at the moment because of the cost to produce the vehicles, and the energy could be one of those factors. Not only are big amounts of jobs going in Europe, this is extended to the UK and straight across the pond to the North and South Americas and Canada, and even in Australia. A friend of mine went and moved over to Australia around 10 years ago, and he has had one of the worst, I would say, 18 months, finding it very hard to get work. Was doing really well, owned a beach house as well as a nice house, had a great job over there. In fact, his company that he was working for poached him from the UK and set him up as well as his family. And it's got to the point now where he's that concerned that he could lose his house. He's had to sell the beach house. He's just falling back, as like we all would do in that situation when things aren't getting better. And you've got bills to pay. Those bills still need to be paid. And what do? You start cutting back on things just like everybody else. And I say this, it is something now that's global. So there's a global problem. And I know what some people might think. Well, all the elites have got together at places like Davos, and this has been by design. But this was coming, in my view, in any case. That's what I've been telling people. Why? 3 main contributing facts has brought this: a technological advancement, an expansion of the population, and I always mention the 3. I can't think of the others at the moment. So you got the economic expansion, the technologically evolving over time, which is taking jobs off people. That's the 3rd one: lack of jobs. And how do they participate in a monetary system if they've got no money and they can't get a job? Because that's how we exchange our labour, isn't it? To obtain money, and then we can participate in a monetary system. But if the wages aren't going up and everything else like electricity, energy across the range, fuel for your car, the food that you buy, if all those costs of living are going up and your salary is not, then you have been making cutbacks over the years. And you're probably getting to the point now where, like a lot of people, the credit cards are maxed out, they can't get a loan anymore, and they're probably not far off, if not already, defaulting on making rent payments or loan payments back on the mortgage of the property that they own. So all these things now have got to a point where they've started to cascade. And of course, I've been talking about that thing, haven't I, on my channel for a long time, the Gauntlet. Well, people are starting to slam full speed into these obstacles in the Gauntlet, and as a result, there is failure. And that failure starts off in a country or globally, and then enters the country and then goes into the cities of the country and filters its way down through the communities, and lo and behold, it ends up in your living room. And I'll tell you what I mean by that, because have a look at the statistics with regards to relationships breaking down and failing, and marriages ending up in divorce, and just see if it's by coincidence that over the last 5 years these things have gone up on an increase. Well, just having a sip of tea. Well, it should come as no surprise. If you want to put pressure on a family, then just reduce their spending ability, or their ability to have even the modest of luxuries like meat in their menu. There's a story I heard the other day. For years, there was a family in America that it was called Steak Friday. I can't remember, I've picked this up watching a video over the last few days on YouTube, and the woman would always cook steak for her husband on a Friday, and it's had to stop, simply because they can't afford Steak Friday. Sad, isn't it, guys? How can you get to a point, where you have done this traditional thing for years, and I can imagine how the guy might feel at the moment. A work, why can't I have, a simple steak at the end of my working week, after I've given up my labour and done that dreadful job I hate? Why can't I have that steak? So terrible, isn't it? And that's the rewards that we're being paid in this modern society. And I guarantee you, even though it was a suggestion and not a directive at Davos when they said you'll have nothing and you'll be happy, it certainly looks like we are heading towards the course of direction of having nothing. But I tell you now, we are not happy. Nobody is happy with nothing. Have a look at the faces on people on the streets. They're not happy. They're probably drugged up out of their faces, or drunk. And the reason why that is because listen to them when, if you ever, have, a bit of time, just speak to these homeless people. You'll find out why they do drugs and why they drink alcohol and all other sorts of stuff. It's because they're trying to block out their miserable life with these things. That's why. And of course, they're not going to look the most prettiest people in the world, but they're human beings that have been forced to deal with the situation that they are dealing with. And tell me something, if you were soaking wet and cold and you had nothing in your pockets, if someone offered you a drink, I'm pretty sure you'd take it. But, that's the world we're getting into. And that is the darkness that I've been talking about for a long time. And it was always destined to come. Whether or not it is by design or not, something's got to change. If you ask me, well, I would do something about, this system that we've got where we exchange labour for money. There needs to be a new mechanism where we obtain money and not necessarily have to exchange our labour for it. Because, otherwise you are going to do what you're doing right now. You are going to, it's just insane what is happening. You've got governments that are pressurising companies that they must pay their employees a minimum wage. That means that the cost of that product that they produce is going to go up, even if it's food or electronics, anything. And then if you put up the energy costs, well, that company's got to then put up the prices again. So we end up in a like an inflation system. If things that keep affecting the products keep going up, the cost of manufacturing these products, then of course they're going to be expensive. And of course then when no one can afford them, guess what? Companies like Volkswagen or Mercedes are going to cut back on the shifts because they ain't selling the cars, basically. And that means this city, I can't remember the name of the city where Volkswagen is, most of the people depend on that. And there's a lot of small companies that also depend on that, because, you know, Volkswagen have these components made by, you know, probably a couple of hundred other little companies. They all come together at the factory and the cars get built. So it's not everything made under one roof. You know, it's made by a lot of companies all working together and assembled at Volkswagen or Mercedes, and that's the way modern manufacturing is these days. But another thing that I heard over the last few days was farmers are reporting people stealing the crops. So we've had a special commission and a tasked police force to deal with here in the UK, in the West Midlands. You ain't going to believe this. Hustling of herds, you know. And the stories that I've heard, people have gone onto the field with an electric chainsaw. They've threw a small tarpaulin down. They've moved one of the cows over to the tarpaulin. They've killed it, and then with the electric chainsaw, you know, cut it up on the field and took the two sides of beef and everything else they've left. Well, you can imagine all the innards, the skin, everything, the head, all the bits they didn't want, they've just left on the field. And sheep are being stolen, but now crops are being stolen. So farmers are now complaining, and it's not just here in the UK, this is a European problem, and I bet you it's further spread than that. They're complaining that people are pinching potatoes. They're digging up the potatoes on the field in the night, and they're stealing them, as well as other things like corn and things like that. So that's where we're going, and nothing is changing in the fact. Whereas, you know, our government here, and I know a lot of people are going to say something here, but listen, if the unemployment rate is going up and expanding, and, you know, I mean, what they're paying these people that are on benefits is ridiculously nothing. And here's the big argument as well. If the government's going to force employees to give people a minimum wage, then why aren't the governments, in terms of benefits, giving the equal to minimum wage? But it's nowhere near that. We have people that are on benefits, people that are mentally ill, people that, you know, for genuine reasons can't get jobs. And some people have been trying that for well over a year to get into, you know, work. So they have had to put with a year of extreme poverty because of the actual benefit amounts that are awarded to them to actually live. And if you look at the cost of living crisis videos on YouTube, just have a look at how people live. You know, parents go without food so that their kids can eat food. Parents really worry like crazy when the 6 weeks holidays, the school holidays are coming up, because, you know, for the point in time where the kids are at school, at least they're getting a school meal. And, you know, now the parents are worried. And not only the ones that are on benefits, but the ones that are on very low salaries are worried how they're going to feed the children during that 6 week period that they're on you know, holidays during that time. So just watch some of the videos. They're horrendous. Some people have to live on, after they've paid the rent, a bit of electric, a bit of gas, you know, and they've brought a small amount of food. You know, they're left with £30 or £20, or not even that in some cases. I've seen people say that the only thing they had in the bank was 20 pence. This is, you know, and, you know, what, we've just seen the elections in America, and I'm glad it's all over now. Let's get back to a normal life. I mean, I can't believe how much, you know, we had to listen to this here in the UK. I mean, why is it that important that it has to be, you know, broadcasted every 24 hours? And it's gone on for way too long, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, yeah, I'm, you know, delighted with the fact that Trump has won, and that evil woman Kamala hasn't. You know, because let's face it, she'd been in power. She was the deputy president, or the second, she was the next in line, let's say. And you know, if she was intending to make changes, then why didn't she while she was there already? Why only make these manifestos and promises to the public, you know, when you become a president? You know, she was vice president. And, you know, she was definitely in a position to make some of these changes that she was talking about happen. And I guess that's why, you know, they went for Trump, because Trump was talking about creating jobs, creating wealth, you know, and security for his country. Some of the things that Kamala clearly wasn't. But I'm not going to get into the, you know, the political promises of politicians, because it doesn't get us anywhere, because I guarantee you that darkness is only going to increase in our lives. It is not going to improve. You know, what we are going to see is further increases in insurance policies, further increases in the cost of food, further increases in the cost of energy, gas, electric that you heat and keep your warm home with, further increases in everything across the range. And what we're not going to see is, you know, the pennies in our pockets increasing. They're only going to get smaller. And unless we deal with this problem now, it is only going to get worse. So, you know, we're at a critical point in our lives now. Something needs to be done. And globally, something needs to be done. So unless we all make the decision to do something about it, nothing is ever going to change. Now, I'm sure that most of the people that found themselves on the street last month were like you today. You're probably, you know, listening to this in the comfort of your own home or your apartment or wherever you live. But if you think that what happened to those people that are on the streets last month can't happen to you in the coming months, then you need to think again. Because that ideology has long gone, and you have to accept the vulnerability now of where you are in this current time, and with this economic climate that we're all taking part in right now. Because the problems I've talked about in this video today are in America, in Canada, all over Europe, including the UK, and, you know, Australia, New Zealand, even China, even Russia, even, you know, every country is experiencing the same problem. We've reached a technological advancement. We don't need the labour anymore. You know, not many of the countries are manufacturers. The manufacturing is getting less and less. We're becoming more of a service-based world, and, you know, not actually creating any wealth at all. So something's got to change, guys. You know, otherwise I'm going to be doing a video perhaps here in another 2 years saying, I told you so. I can just keep saying that now. I can say it today. I told you so. You know, something needs to change. Anyhow, on that note, guys, I will just mention the link down there in the description. And the only other thing for me to do is say what I usually do. You know, I'm wishing you all the best. You know, I hope whoever your God is, that is, you know, keeping a watchful eye over you, and being a good shepherd. And, you know, you do your bit to look after your family and your loved ones. And I'll be back, like I say, in the next couple of days with the Earth Health at a Glance. And then on around the 12th, we'll do the latest magnetic pole position. As always, bye for now.